Breaking news into CBS Sports HQ. What a scene it was at London's Wembley Stadium. The undisputed heavyweight championship. Oleksandr Usyk knocking out Daniel Dubois in what was the second matchup between these two heavyweights. Chris Honorado, Danny Vithlani, Shakiel Mahjouri joining us as well. Danny, let me start with you in studio here. You've said it a number of times. What a performance, a fifth-round knockout from Usyk.
Absolute masterclass. The way that he was playing with the feinting of that lead hand, baiting him, walking towards the power side to set up that huge left cross. He was landing every punch in the book and just playing setup games. It was so masterful to watch. That conditioning that I thought was going to play a huge edge in the back half of the fight really played a huge edge in the front half of the fight. He was already pouring on that pressure. It didn't look like Dubois was going to be able to keep up, and his defense was so sound, too. He never really got hit clean with anything. Unreal performance once again from Oleksandr Usyk.
And Shaq, anytime Usyk seemed to get hit by Dubois, it didn't stun him enough at any moment. And in any case, to Danny's point, maybe he was playing possum to a degree.
Well, not only did it not stun him, it did not scare him. Usyk did such a masterful job of staying calm in those moments and using Daniel Dubois' overcommitment to those little brawls in the pocket by the ropes to land those counters. It's often what sort of, every time Daniel Dubois landed a hard shot, Usyk would return with one or two harder, and it's really what kept Dubois from putting on the pressure. It's what ended up with him getting knocked down with that left-right hook combo in round 5. Shortly after he gets put away, hard left hook for the finish.
Yeah, it was the right that knocked him down the first time, the left that finished the job at Wembley. Shaq, give us, if you could, a little perspective on what this would have been like for Dubois, who is just an hour drive away from Wembley Stadium, where he grew up. I mean, the chants were raining down in a football, soccer stadium as if they were on a pitch.
It must be heartbreaking. I think approximately 90,000 were in Wembley Stadium for that fight. And he had such a quiet confidence to him. He didn't want to talk about the knockdown in the first fight that might have been a low blow, might not have been. You have to imagine that spurred some confidence in how the second fight would go. But more than that, he looked really transformed. He was 27. He had an 11-year age gap between him and 38-year-old Usyk. People were wondering, between the wars with Fury and his age, if things are starting to sort of slow down for Usyk. Meanwhile, Daniel Dubois comes into this not only with the confidence from what he was able to do early in the first fight against Usyk, but he had beaten Jarrell Miller. He had beaten Hrgovic. He had beaten Anthony Joshua, stopped them all. This looked like the best version of Daniel Dubois, ignoring maybe some of the questions about where people like Anthony Joshua were at when they fought. He looked more evolved, and yet he got taken out way easier. It must be crushing.
Danny, it was a 9th round knockout, the first meeting. And to what Shaq said here, Dubois is younger, he's bigger, but he just wasn't able to sustain any measure of success tonight against Usyk. Even Usyk, when he was asked after this fight, why are you better the second time around, even he couldn't answer it now, a 2-time heavyweight undisputed champ.
I love Usyk's post-fight interviews. I don't know. I'm sorry, bro. He's just such a nice guy. You got to love him. But, yeah, the masterful performance in the second bout really just goes to show how crafty he is and how smart he is. In the first bout, you could argue that maybe it was a clean shot. Every time I watch it, my mind changes, really. But regardless of whether it was clean or not, the point is Usyk got up and knocked him out later in that fight. So this time, without any big damage landing early, he was able to really take over and pour on that pressure early on. The southpaw jab was landing at will. I think he won the mental battle early on. We saw a moment where Dubois almost glanced a little low blow that looked similar to that initial blow that we talked about. Usyk laughed it off, and it kind of lit a fire inside him. After that moment, he really turned up. Wow, what a knockout.
And why at 38 can he still be as effective as he is in the ring?
His conditioning is just supreme. It's not only Tyson Fury, I think, in this weight class is the only fighter that can keep up with him. His pace, his pressure, over 12 rounds, and that movement that he puts on display is that of a middleweight. He's a cruiserweight that moved up to heavyweight, and a lot of people asked, is he going to be able to hang with the big boys up here? None of them can hang with him. He's too quick, he's too savvy, he's too skillful, and he combines that with the power. Like Shaq said, he uses your power against you. I don't know if there's any more questions he needs to answer at heavyweight, but he said after the fight, maybe one more.
Shaq, 24-0, 15 knockouts in that undefeated professional record. You just heard Danny mention Fury's name there. If there is a next fight for Oleksandr Usyk, who should it be?
It depends on what you think is most important when it comes to matchmaking. Tyson Fury, has already come out and said that their fight is happening next, April 18th, Wembley next year. Turki Sheikh came out the day before that and said that Fury would unretire. We haven't heard from Usyk's camp. In the meantime, I think that Joseph Parker is the WBO mandatory. So if keeping the Undisputed title at stake is important, that's something you have to consider. That would also be a fresh fight, right? I know Usyk mentioned 4 names. He had mentioned Fury, Joshua, Chisora, or Parker. He's beaten Chisora once. He's beaten Fury and Joshua twice. At least Joseph Parker would be a fresh matchup. He's on about a 6-fight win streak. So that would be probably the most deserving of the bunch. Money talks. I don't know how this is going to shape out. It kind of depends on how willing the WBO is to make some compromises here. Tyson Fury in Wembley would be the biggest fight you can make. Joseph Parker has a strong case for why he should be next.
All right, before I turn to Danny on what he wants to see next, why is Parker maybe the best fight in terms of matchup that would be next? We've obviously already seen Usyk and Fury. Why Parker, as you said, a fresh fight? What would draw people to that one?
I think fresh fights are important in general. I, as a consumer, am not super interested in a Fury trilogy. We've seen who the better man is. Like we talked about, Usyk made it look a little easier the second time. And candidly, while the second fight was a lot of fun to watch, it wasn't the sort of thing that left me seeking more. Joseph Parker, 6-fight win streak. He's got knockouts over Deontay Wilder and Zhilei Zhang. At this point, it's kind of hard to convince me that any of these heavyweights are going to beat Usyk. He is the best in his generations, but I'm a fan of fresh flavor. And at this point, Usyk deserves the chance to really flesh out his resume, leave no stone unturned, leave no questions unanswered. People are a little split on whether or not he's quite top 10 all-time heavyweights. I think the more he can add to the resume, the more he makes that case absolutely undeniable.
And Danny, Wembley seemed to be a little undecided too. As Usyk was throwing out the names of contenders, the crowd didn't react in an overwhelming fashion for maybe the trilogy fight against Fury or any of the other names. So we're all kind of waiting to see what ends up happening if Usyk does get back into the ring in 2026 at some point. Who do you want to see next?
I want to see Joseph Parker. It looked almost as if he was polling the crowd and seeing who made the biggest reaction, right? But I think Parker is the next best fight. I agree with Shaq. I think he's the best boxer left in the heavyweight division that has not already faced off against Oleksandr Usyk. He can actually go skill for skill with him. These other kind of big, powerful heavyweights that plod forward looking for the knockout, he can play the matador versus the bull. Parker can box a little more, show that skill. So I think that presents a better matchup.
All right, Shaq said the debate is whether or not he is top 10. Guys, quickly here, Shaq. Quick, I know, like, prisoner of the moment, we all are that, but would you put Usyk in the top 10?
I do. I think it's important that we have representatives from every generation. We can only sort of guess and play fantasy matchmaker about how Usyk would match up against some of the people that we have as fixtures in the top 10. Unfortunately, we can't do that, but I think for history's sake, it's important that we have representatives from various generations. He is now a 2-time undisputed heavyweight champion, 3-time undisputed champion to boot when you factor in cruiserweight. Obviously, it doesn't mean as much in the heavyweight conversation, but he is the best of his generation, and I think he deserves to go down in history for that as a top 10 all-time.
Danny?
Dismantling Anthony Joshua twice, Tyson Fury twice, now Dubois twice. He's cleared out the division. That's what greats do. I got him up there in my top 10.
All right, and in multiple weight classes, as we've talked about here already on HQ. Shaq Mahjouri, Danny Vithlani in studio here. Here is a look at Oleksandr Usyk since moving from cruiser to heavyweight. 8-0 in this weight class, and as Danny just pointed out, taking down the likes of Joshua, Fury, and Dubois now twice, and a 2-time undisputed heavyweight champion.